All right, hey everybody. Today's video will be preparing a Gibson headstock, broken Gibson headstock. Imagine that. We did one of these kind of, some people were there in class when we did Bradley's Epiphone. It was kind of a different kind of break. And it came out good, and hopefully we'll get that thing all together. But this one has actually got kind of a strange crack. Not too strange, but I kind of put these clamps on it when the guy brought it in because it was kind of all tweaked and coming apart. So I put some clamps and a couple cauls on it just to kind of clamp it flat again and get it ready to glue, but I haven't glued anything yet on it. I need to take off these tuners. I took off some of them, obviously, but very common, and he wants this all, oversprayed and made to look as good as possible. And luckily it's black, so that helps. We're missing a little bit of wood in here. You can see that. Sorry about my light. That little spot right there. Anyway, we'll look at it here. I'll take it apart. So I'm just going to glue it up now, and then later we'll do the finish work on it and all that, which isn't too exciting, but that's half the battle at least. This won't take long. So I'm going to take these clamps off and my cauls off. Show you again here. See how that's split? Sorry if that light's not good, but yeah, this is kind of, we pushed it back together pretty good. But yeah, it's split all the way down to here, which normally they split like in a kind of a smile shape, right where the carve meets the headstock. This one kind of split up the headstock, which is a little weird, but that is how it goes sometimes. Usually, like I said, yeah, it's a smile and it comes off to this side. Now in these Gibsons, usually what happens is, this is just a studio Les Paul, is that this head plate is a piece of plastic, like a piece of pickguard material or something that's, got their logo on it and all that stuff, and they glue it on at the factory, and then they trim it off, and that kind of, at least, it saves the headstock. So the wood on a lot of these Les Pauls, it'll split through to that headstock overlay, but it'll stop it from completely coming apart into two pieces, which is like the one we did in there, Bradley's. So it helps sometimes because it keeps everything together in one piece, and all you have to do is get it clamped back together really nice and glued up. So we'll do that now. I'm going to take the rest of these tuners off. Hope you're all doing good. Do this quick. Go out and do some gardening. It's a beautiful day out there. So I will take the rest of these shallers off because I'm going to have to sandwich this pretty good. So I got kind of my pieces of Lexan out that I'll use to sandwich it. Get it nice and flat and back together, and I might have to put a clamp sideways on it too to kind of get this together because it is kind of opened up. But it's going back together nice and clean, so if I can by hand push everything and the crack lines up nice and tight, then we're making progress. And usually these, putting them back together is pretty easy. Get the right clamping techniques, and away you go. Just going to use some Tight Bond Original as usual. Just make sure you got all your clamps and everything ready to go. I got a damp rag ready to go. I got a water bottle. I got my different various clamps to have ready so that when I do have the glue in there, I can hit it pretty quick. Another thing you usually want to do is, a truss rod. I go ahead and loosen it. On a Les Paul, I actually take the truss rod nut off. Don't have to, but one thing that is kind of handy a lot of times on Les Pauls when they crack is, since you have this truss rod adjustment chase here, a lot of times, we use the vacuum cleaner to the glue sucker. A lot of times it cracks through that truss rod route, and I could just I can feed glue in from the backside, and put a vacuum cleaner right on top of there, and it sucks all the glue right in. For the most part, maybe you'll do a little of that because this crack is going through there a little bit, but this thing's pretty open, and so I want to get it good and clean, blow it out, and if there's any little, just depends on how the break is, but when they, split open, if there's any little splinters that kind of got, come loose and they're kind of cockeyed in there and they're not really going to lay down right in the same spot that they were, always take a little needle or a X-Acto knife and kind of pick them out, kind of open it up, and any little splinters that are going to keep you from getting that all to come back together nice and tight, that are out of place, I get rid of them, so it doesn't matter. I mean, you're going to get 99.9% of everything glued back together, so if you're missing a little piece of wood here and there, better to just get rid of it and get it out of the way so it doesn't get in your, get in the way of everything coming back together nice and tight, than trying to salvage some splinter and saying, well, I need that little piece of wood in there, or else it won't hold. That's not true. I've taken a lot of wood and stuff out of things that were pretty beaten and glued it back together, and everything was fine. It's just kind of afterwards, depending on how what you want it to look like, the aesthetics of it. That's where the other work comes from, filling in whatever broke out and putting finish over it, or coloring it, what have you. So that's just another side of this. And a lot of times, people will be like, they'll bring me a headstock busted, and it's like, okay, well, what do you want? Do you want it just all, structurally repaired and back together, and it'll play and everything will be fine, and you don't really care much what it looks like, just to do a little touch up on the crack with some super glue or something? Or do you want it like this guy does? I want to overspray lacquer and make it look as close to original as possible. Well, that kind of basically doubles the price. It's like, I can glue this back, no problem, and 100, 150 bucks. If you want it all finished and everything, well, now you're 250, 300, somewhere like that, depending on how much I got to do. And this one, I got to go over the whole headstock because obviously the crack goes all the way up the headstock. So usually, sometimes I can just do right there, where the headstock meets the carve of the neck, just do an overspray up, halfway up the headstock and a few inches down the neck, and blend it with some lacquer, and less is more. So when I get into that stuff, I do the least amount possible to get it all covered, and even then it's not 100% perfect usually. But so other things you can do is make sure everything's clean right around the crack. Sometimes I'll take some naphtha and clean things out, but just basically, usually things are pretty in good shape, and other than kind of going in there and picking some splinters out, it might stop you from getting it all the way back down. So I just try to push it all back together by hand, and then kind of feel where the crack is coming together, and if it's all flush and basically going back without anything getting hung up, we're good to go. So I want to, like I said, have my clamps kind of ready. Now, some clamps I usually use, and I'll use one, are these guys that we have some at the school, and you can get them from StuMac and LMI, I think. They're like these plumbing clamps. They're like big, heavy-duty zip ties, but they're great. And I make these cauls for them because I like to put this caul like this, and then that kind of gives you the neck. So this is on the fingerboard, and then this wraps around the backside carve, the profile of the neck, and it, of course, flexible, so it will contour to any neck shape, which is really handy. So yeah, I get one of these or two of these. This one's going to go right on the end where this little tail, what I call the duck tail, it always happens. Sorry if you can't see, I gotta get better light. Okay, right here at the, right here at the very end, that little tail is usually the trickiest part to get down nice and flush. So, can we see that? Yeah. Anyway, little ducktail. So kind of get things clean, take, of course, truss rod cover off and all that. I can put a vacuum. You can put a little piece of tape over the truss rod thread just to kind of keep it from getting full of glue, or you can put a little mineral oil on it or something like that, and that'll keep the glue from like adhering to it. I mean, the wood glue isn't gonna stick to the metal. You can pick it off, you know, after it's done. So, but just sometimes for ease, if I don't screw it up, I'll put a little piece of tape around it, keep it clean. Not that it's a big deal, like I said. If you put a little oil on it, which you should do anyway, as a setup thing, then the glue won't stick. And it's easy to clean off. Sometimes it's hard to get a little piece of tape on this thing. Come on, you. Sticky tape. Come on. Stick to my finger, but that's one reason why I don't do it. Pain in the butt. Alright. So I just put a little piece of tape on the end of that. Anyway, trying to show you what's going on. I know. I'm trying to go back and forth. And maybe I should just put, I'm moving around so much, I try to put the camera right on what I'm doing, but otherwise. So, get this nice and clean. Sometimes on the face of this, you know, where the crack is, you'll see a little wrinkling or cracking of the finish itself. Not much you can do about that, other than, you know, overspray it all, or you could take the finish off, sand it down through the cracks, refinish it all. That's kind of tricky, and it's not worth it. You'll see a lot of Les Pauls that have broken headstocks, and if you see some kind of wrinkling across the face of that headstock, you know, it's a pretty good indication that it was broken and been fixed, as so many of them have. So, get at my handy dandy neck vise here, get this opened up. Looks pretty good. It's just going to be a lot of just weaseling in glue with my finger and a brush. Take a brush, got a paper plate here that I can put a glue puddle on. My glue puddle ready. Make sure I got a damp rag ready. I really need to wash my hands. Can be important washing, especially if you're doing, we'll do some top cracks and things. I got a couple acoustics that need to be fixed up. And, you know, when you're working on spruce, of course, black isn't going to show anything, but if you're working on a real light, you know, maple or spruce, natural finish, fingers work great for working glue in, but they're kind of greasy and dirty, so you can kind of make things dark, so I always make sure I'm good and clean before I do that kind of stuff. All right, so, you know, get a plan of attack on which calls are going to go somewhere. Like I have calls that, you know, basically shaped like the headstock of a Les Paul because we do it so often. So that's going to go on top. This guy has a flat surface, so I got some of these that I make that have curved surface for the fingerboard, and then this one's kind of a big one with a flat surface for the headstock, and I have this extra little block on here because sometimes I need to just put a clamp on that ducktail right at the very end just to get some good pressure on it. So I kind of added that. That will probably come into play on this one. So this one I'm not going to use because my crack doesn't go beyond the fingerboard. You know, it's right. There we go. That's a good look at it, right? Just down, so that's that little ducktail that I want to get down, and it's all basically over the headstock, so don't need to clamp it on the fingerboard, but sometimes they, you know, crack down pretty far, or, you know, you just never know. Depends on the cut of the wood and what happened to it. I don't ask much about what happened to it. People are usually embarrassed enough, like, I broke my guitar. The worst thing people can do on these things, and this guy's let it sit around for a while, that's why I kind of had it clamped up to kind of push it back together, because he still had the strings on it, and the headstock was all cockeyed, you know, where it was busted, pulling it up, you know, pulling it apart. Took all the strings off and got all the tension off of it and put some clamps on it, and it was sitting over in a corner for a while. While I dealt with other things, he's not in a big hurry, but I just wanted to kind of push things back together, at least for a while I was sitting there. So that when it came time to do what I'm going to do now, it would be kind of ready to go, or much more so. So I can see a couple little thingies in here. Blow anything loose in there that's going to keep us from, I mean, it's mahogany, it's a little bit soft, so if some little guy is in there, you know, clamp it pretty good, it's going to kind of crush it in there, but anything that's going to keep all our crack lines from one side or the other so they're not offset and I don't have a bump, that'll make it, after I'm done finishing it, it'll look pretty good. The better you can get everything back flush and smooth, the better it's going to look at the end. And most people are worried about that. Like, they come to pick it up and they feel it with their thumb, like, oh, I can't even feel where the crack was, you know. Great job. Which is what you want to do. So, like I said, yeah, just kind of make sure what kind of clamping system you're going to put on here. I'm going to need a couple different ones since this is so long, so I might have to put one clamp down here at the very end and then add another piece up top here. I got a whole thing of, this is my Lexan call box of all kinds of things that I dig through and go, oh, I'll use that piece, oh, I can use this piece, and they just kind of keep building up. Usually cutouts or cut-offs from making jigs and things like that, and they go into this box and become clamping calls. So, all right, I think we're good. Like I said, I might have to put a clamp sideways on it, which is fine, hopefully, but if I sandwich it really good, and since it's kind of on a diagonal, it all should level out and come together. So, yes, I'm going to put this clamp, this Les Paul on front. Sometimes it's nice to have a little spring clamp to kind of, you know, I can put this on and I can spring clamp it in place really quick while I mess with other stuff, you know, and get actual clamps on there. Better clamps, but since I'm trying to sandwich everything together and working with a bunch of different stuff at once, anyway, so it's about just getting the glue in there really good at the moment, which is fine, and I can, you know, I can suck the glue in to some degree. I also use I have just a piece of hose that, I mean, I will literally put it in my mouth and blow, you know, work the glue in there, put this on there and pressurize it and blow the glue into it. Or you can use like a piece of like guitar, you know, an old string. There's always plenty of on the ground here. A little cut off of like a G string or something like that, and I can kind of make a little loop with it, perhaps like that or something, and I can kind of use it to kind of push it down in there. Or, you know, it's about getting the air out of there for the most part, because it's the air down inside this crack, since it comes to an end, that is holding it up. So I can kind of work a little piece of string or something like that, and kind of work at it. You got some time with this glue, but you want to have everything ready to go, so you can clamp it. So this thing, our pipe clamp guy, I can just kind of put on there and get ready, because it's going to go right here. Trying to see if you could see right on my ducktail there. Got a brush, you know, always good to go, like get some nylon painting brushes for touch-up and all that kind of stuff. I got lots of different ones. You can find like sets like this at Ross. I got it at Ross, but a couple bucks. Get some decent ones, and they're good for glue, and they're good for touching up lacquer and color and all that stuff, whatever. And then they get kind of beat up, and I throw them away and buy another pack. All right, let's do it. So I could just kind of squeeze glue right into here from the bottle, which may not be a bad idea. You could use a syringe kind of thing. I do have this syringe that I made. If you get these, and I put a piece of tubing on here, and I got a piece of like wire that I can bend it. So sometimes this is good for inside of an acoustic or something where I got to kind of force some glue into a place. And of course at Rockler and places like that, they do have these like hypodermic almost syringes. So different methods. I just kind of I tried all that stuff and sometimes it's cool. Like one of those syringes might be pretty cool in a situation like this, but I'm just going to work it in. And a lot of this glue is going to come out. I could, depending where the crack is, if it's coming through, I could suck it into here. I can kind of show you. On my truss rod, problem is this crack is so, but I can suck it through to the other side of this. It works. Anyway, sometimes that works great, sometimes it's like, better just to work it in. And you can, water this tight bond down a little bit if you want. I'd be really, some people do that a lot. Like, say I got a little puddle like this of, God, everything's so washed out on this thing. So, okay, there's a couple drops of water in there mixed in really good. It'll definitely boost the viscosity of it quite a bit. You don't want to water down too much. It's your glue, but sometimes things get tight. So I can go in there with my guitar string. It's good to kind of try to figure out which way the grain is running. You don't want to brush something against the grain, but it can be kind of hard to tell sometimes. You don't want to grab a splinter and put something out of whack, but I don't know, this guitar string is working pretty good right now. Go in there. Oh, there you go. Just need to kind of, it's more about pushing out that air. And I can use this handy dandy. Show you how I do that. It works great sometimes in tight little cracks. And I can move over to my brush and work it in there. Again, like I said, I can give it a little, tiny little spritz of water, just a drop or so, and work it in. And it does help give it a little bit more. It helps keep the open time of the glue kind of working a little better and longer, maybe a little more time, and it can help it kind of get down into the tight spots, and then kind of work it back and forth. So I'm kind of closing it, opening it, and just kind of look at the squeeze out and what's happening. Your finger working it into tight spots and cracks. Work pretty well. See that? Got a little delamination of the headstock top there, so I didn't notice that until the glue started getting in there. That's a good spot to use this. You could suck it out too. A little easier than a vacuum cleaner. Just a little tube. My wet rag here. This spot. Just keep working it. Where the crack comes together, where it's the tight end of it, the open side. And sometimes I'll actually, you know, flip these, especially if it's a normal crack where it's usually a smile or whatever right on the ears. I might put the guitar upside down, you know, in my clamp here, and just kind of gravity feed it in. So kind of depends on the situation. But so far this is all going in. And I can see the glue all the way down in there. Okay, that spot's a little funky. A little more down in here. Cool. Work it. Work it. So I've got some time, but like I say, you want to have your clamps ready, and so there does come time to finally. So if I'm wiping with my, you know, I kind of want to wipe down, you know, I don't want to wipe up against that ducktail or grab anything I don't want to break off or what have you. So this is looking pretty good. Looking good. And I can do kind of a squeeze out with my hand and just make sure that things are coming back together still. I mean, can't really, once we get gluing on this, unless you've got a headstock where it's actually two pieces, where you can pull it all back apart and wipe it down and start over, abort your system. Cool. I think that's good. All right, now it's time to clamp. So, get this clamp going. I got my guy on there. How do I want to do this? I want to do this way, maybe. It's going to be a little funky here, but that's okay. Where's my spring clamp? So I can kind of put this on here and kind of just hold my calls in place at the moment. And I can get this kind of started with my pipe clamp guy. Get that going on the ducktail. Takes a little while to thread it up. I just kind of want to loosely do things, you know, until I get everything in place and I'm happy with where my clamps are and everything's coming together. And then what I can do is, I need to clamp up here. I kind of need to sandwich this way. I think that'll be good. And I can put this clamp up here, so I'm going to basically go right to the, see, sometimes you just got to really, it's not a bad idea to do a full clamp dry run, you know, at least pretty close, so you know, so you can get all kind of your stuff ready to go fast. But, okay, right on that crack, you can see squeeze outs coming out everywhere now. Things are starting to look like they want to go back together. So I'll kind of work from the top of the headstock down towards that ducktail. Let the squeeze out happen as we go here. And then a lot of times, you know, I'll get this all clamped up and leave it 20 minutes or so. Glue will set up pretty good by then. It's not going to like pop back open. Take all my clamps and everything off, my cawls. Take a nice clean damp rag, wipe up all the glue, get it nice and clean as far as all the squeeze out off of it, and then re-clamp it all, you know. Just go back and do it all again, clamp it up really tight, and then I leave it overnight or something like that. Just so all the water gets out of it. Anytime you're gluing with, you know, water-based glue, it kind of swells the wood a little bit. So, as I was talking about before, getting all the cracks nice and level and everything tight. You know, if it's kind of swollen a little bit from water, the wood, it can kind of ridge up a little bit. So So keeping the clamps on there and everything solid overnight, letting that glue totally dry out and the wood kind of dry out, everything will kind of drop back down and you'll get a nice flat surface and it'll be nice and tight and people will go, ooh, that feels so good. So some small C clamps, usually enough. If the clamp doesn't seem like it's cutting it, I can get a bigger clamp, but you know, that's nice with the Lexan. That's clear and you can see through it, you can see what's going on and you can see the squeeze out come out. And then you can see the Lexan caul go across the whole crack and all the squeeze out glue will spread away from it and it gives you a good idea that everything's flush and clean. You know, if you got a clamp or a caul on there and a clamp and you can see on one side of the crack, it's, you know, you got glue there, but the other side of the crack, you can see, you know, the Lexan is pressing down flat on the wood or the guitar and, you know, it's pushed all the glue away from it because it's making full contact. Kind of lets you know that things aren't quite jiving. But I'm just going to kind of work my way towards my ducktail end. And I kind of need one right there. I need another little piece. Piece, little sliver here for the open up and let's go. Gets a little funky looking, but whatever gets the job done here. Oh, come on. All right, that one's right there. Put that right on the crack and crank this down. Take this off now, and my ducktail pipe clamp. Now it's the last thing I'm going to dial in. Kind of get rid of some of the glue while we're at it here. Damp rag and a ruler, our handy dandy 6-inch ruler, and get anything I can out of there. Get it cleaned up. Now you can kind of feel, usually the crack's right on those ears where the, you know, and I always kind of feel it with my finger, and when I feel that nice and smooth and everything, I don't feel a little lip one way or another. It's a good indication that everything's tight. And this pipe clamp right on that very end, tail end, really locks it down nice and tight. That's always the trickiest spot to get flush. That's what's so great about these pipe clamps. They contour right around that, and it doesn't matter if it's, you know, on one side or, you know, some weird spot on the contour. It'll just wrap right around it and draw it together, and they are pretty nice. So that's pretty good. Everything's going back tight. Crack looks good. I can see through the Lexan that everything's pretty coming together, and the Lexan has pushed all the glue away from each side of the crack. And if I would need to move things around, you know, to get a little more spot here and there, a little more pressure on the spot, or I might, you know, when I let it sit 5 minutes or so, you know, I might move a clamp just a little bit to kind of knock another spot down and make sure. It's not a bad idea when you're doing cracks like that. You know, if you can only get so many clamps on it, and right on that spot where it's clamped, boy, if things are tight and then an inch or so away, it's maybe not so much. You know, before the glue totally sets up, 5 minutes or so, you can kind of just move the clamp, you know, an inch or half an inch, and kind of zip it up and down as is required. But this is looking good. I can really put a lot of pressure on here, which is cool. Sandwich everything up. Cool. I like that. I like that. So on the front side of this, so let's see what this looks like. It's a crazy mess. So you can see my pipe clamp and my caul It's going around, everything's sandwiched. I kind of should have had a, this is a weirdo. It's usually like this call right here, that shape like, that's usually the area that all the cracks happen, and this one's going all the way up the headstock through the tuner holes, which is obviously why that might happen, because you got holes in there, so it's a weak spot. But I don't know if you can see through there. See, it's all black on either side of the crack, so you know the call's pushed nice and flush and flat, pretty much telling me that everything's level and even. So a little funky. This is kind of a big clamp. It's a little clunky. It works. And sometimes, you know, if they are that smile crack and you know they kind of break this way, right? I'll put it, you know, I can have a piece of wood or something that I can rest the face of the headstock on, and I can actually clamp it this way, you know, with a cam clamp or something on the neck, kind of pushing that headstock back just to get that ducktail down nice and tight sometimes if I have to. It's not a bad idea. I could kind of do that on this. I could put it on the guy here, and since I got this call, and I would, where is the cam clamp? Excuse me. Put a call on it like this, or clamp, sorry, and just put a little pressure down on that neck to kind of push that headstock back a little bit, get a little extra push to get things back to where they came from. So, but I can feel around just kind of with my fingers on the cracks that are exposed, and I'm like, yeah, that feels really good. And like I said, I got that extra little block here on that call that I use for the pipe clamp guy, that I could, you know, add just a little extra pressure right on top of that, just basically on that pipe clamp, and just push that little end ducktail down, you know, a little more specifically right on the spot. That's kind of why I did that, and it works pretty good. Ta-da! So, anyway, let me got this thing plugged in. Do-do-do. So, where are we? Sorry about that. So you can see I'm kind of, it's kind of a contraption, but you know, I got that push, so giving pressure up and pushing that headstock back up just a little bit. And I got that one little clamp that sits on that guy. Anyway, and it pushes right on top of that. Sorry, I can't see. I got this thing turned around. Cool. So this is, I keep trying to keep my shop clean. There's the stairs in my basement. There's my wall O stuff. Bathroom. All my things. This is all. We'll go through here one day. A couple guitars that I built. This is wonky making it do this. Sorry. Should have flipped it around. Vanity wall pictures. There's that Gibson that I built, that I restored. Remember we were doing that? And here's the back I put on it. 1935. Love this thing. What else do I got? Man, everything's so glary on this thing. Anyway, that's my pop room. Da-da-da. Cool. We'll do some finish on this thing and make it look pretty later on. Dun, dun, dun. Thanks a lot.